What's up, everybody? This is Coach Aaron Saft and the Running is Life podcast. And if you hadn't heard, somehow I got into Western States. It was a massive, massive surprise. I did not think here at the age of 47 that with two tickets, I would get back into Western States so soon. Having just run it 2 years ago, believe me, I I can't undervalue the luck that I had in getting drawn to be able to race this. I know I've kind of talked about um, potential of ever racing it again, and I've been on the negative side of that, but I can't state how fortunate I feel to get in so soon, with the goal of trying to get that silver buckle and break 24 hours. And going to talk about that here on this episode. Things I've learned, things I'm changing, things I'm doing, and how I'm surrounding myself in this journey to Western States because I learned a lot the first time around. And there's so many spin-offs from this podcast, and I've talked about a number of things with my athletes and about preparing for an event like this, getting into a lottery or not getting into a lottery. Honestly, I was hoping. Well, not really. I can't say that I was hoping to get into hard rock. I would rather be getting into hard rock in 2026 to do it in the direction I hadn't done. But that's brought up a another another challenge because Western States is not a hard rock qualifier. So I'll need a qualifier as well. So while this was unexpected, it obviously changed my year and the plan for my year because what we had looked at was well, potentially doing hard rock if I got in, and if not, then doing a qualifier. But having Western States thrown into the mix, it really created a challenge in finding a hard rock qualifier that would work for the schedule because the really we're just down to two East Coast races if you're trying to qualify for 2026. We're down to Hellbender and Cruel Jewel, which unfortunately are back-to-back weekends. And as my schedule would have it, the kids have their state qualifying meet the weekend of Hellbender and the state meet the weekend of Cruel Jewel. So I can't miss those. They are my priority, these kids. And I especially want to see those kids succeed and go to states and be there for them at the state meet. And neither meet is in Western North Carolina. So I don't have the opportunity of trying to do what I did last year and, finish Hellbender and then scooch over to the state qualifying meet. It just won't work. The state qualifying meet is way too far away. So, I had to look elsewhere, and I started looking at races potentially like Cascades Crest, which is a lottery. I did put in for the lottery, and my thinking was, however illogical it is, was that we'll already be out at Western States, and Cascades is only 2 weeks after, so potentially I could just drive up to Washington State and camp for 2 weeks and then run Cascades Crest, or hike it best I could, and then hopefully have my hard rock qualifier knocked out. Now it's a lottery once again, so may or may not get in. We'll see what the lottery brings. But in the meantime, because I wanted to make sure that I did have a qualifier on the schedule, I signed up for Run Rabbit Run in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, in September. So at least I do have something on the calendar that is a hard rock qualifier. Is it a guaranteed finish? No. As many runners can testify, it is, it's a tough race. It's at altitude, and it's, there's no guarantee of finishing this one. And, as of late, I've kind of struggled with the high altitude races. I'm hoping to dial that in, and that's something we're going to kind of talk about here because, that does come into play with Western States. I mean, it's not super high altitude, but it is altitude nonetheless. So we're going to talk about some of those things here in this episode. But the Hard Rock qualifier became a big question, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Which was a conversation that I not only had with my coach, Ryan, but with my family, which was super important. Once I got into Western States, it became a huge conversation, right? Keegan is potentially running the Nike National Meet, which is out at Haywood Field, the University of Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. So we'll be out there the week before Western, and the plan right now, this is all if Keegan qualifies and is healthy, God willing, that he'll race Nike Nationals. NCAs will be going on the same weekend, so it would be awesome. We get to hopefully have Keegan and potentially Ambrin race out at Nike Nationals, and then watch the NCAA meet, and then we would drive down to Tahoe. Um, and be there the week of Western States. So it potentially could work out. We'll see how things go. I'm excited for the opportunity, obviously, in all regards, having Keegan and Ambrin go out there and race and see the University of Oregon and see the new track at Haywood Field. And then, obviously running Western States. So, with that said, as you probably have heard, if you've been listening to the podcast, my plan was to do the Brutes Challenge, which here in January coming up, I had my first one, which I was going to do the Georgia Loop. Once again, due to the schedule changes, I have decided to not go after the Brutes Challenge this year. Gonna focus my energies, attention, and training on Western States, and we'll talk about all of that. So that's created a training shift in what I'm doing. Obviously, training for the Brutes Challenge and Hard Rock was very different training than what my attention is, and my training focus is for Western States. So we began already having the conversation, Ryan and I, about potentially getting some turnover back and getting some fitness in that regard back. And so we began, and you can see on Strava, I'm trying to do a better job. Please understand, I am on Training Peak so much with my athletes, both building schedules and checking on my athletes on a daily basis, that it's very difficult for me to shift over to Strava very often. So, and my apologies, I don't get to like many activities because I don't scroll on Strava very often. As I'll talk about, I have to be very cognizant of my time and how I use it. I would love to give you guys kudos because you sure deserve it on a lot of your training. But focusing on my athletes is my priority, and I'm going to talk about priorities. So, with that said, trying to do a little bit better of being a little bit more revealing, a little bit more open about my training and what we're doing, how I'm feeling, how it's going, so you can kind of follow along and see. Feel free to ask questions. Ryan and I are on the same page, and I'm really trying to work on getting that turnover back. As I record this, I'm on a day off, thankfully. I have a day off today. Wednesdays, it's the day before the podcast release, tend to be a busy day. I'm also recording a podcast today about coaching. And I'll be on another podcast, and I'll share that on my socials. And I hope to have her on my podcast as well, to talk about how she's trying to help coaches gain more clientele, gain more athletes, and be better coaches all around. So stay tuned for that conversation, as I've mentioned in the past. But all that to say, Wednesdays are a pretty busy day. So yesterday I had a workout. I did 6 by 1 minute. It was kind of just turnover. It, like notes said, not to push too hard. I tried not to, but there were a few inclines in which, I was pushing on the flat, not to a point of where I felt like I was overdoing it. But once I hit the hill, I could feel the heart rate increase. And I think like on maybe two of them, I pushed into, too tough of a zone. But it's really, the point was just to get my legs turning back over. We've been doing some threshold work. Really just trying to build back my athletic base because it's stuff that I haven't touched in a while. And that's just me being real. The purpose in training is just kind of get my fitness back. We still have plenty of time. So we're actually going to jump on a call today. The call is going to be between my strength coach, Will France, and my running coach, Ryan Anderson, and I. We're going to talk about the months ahead, and kind of formulating a plan as to what we envision for my training. And we'll talk again about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, how it's set up. We want the strength to facilitate growth within the running, and keep me healthy. So we're all trying to be on the same page, and I love the fact that we're coordinating as a team. So that's a conversation I'm actually having after we record this podcast. I would have loved to record this after that conversation. It's just as the day worked out, I won't have time to do so. Anyhow, it's created quite the shift in my training and purpose in my training. It's also motivated me and inspired me because I've kind of missed this. I didn't realize that. I'll be honest. Just going out there and running is very enjoyable to me. I love the process, right? I love just going out for a run. And it doesn't matter if it's just on my road, out and back, up in the woods, on the road, even on the treadmill from time to time. Like I just love getting out there and running. It's just a great part of my day. It's one of the joys of my day, and I don't take that for granted. Adding back these workouts, it's like it got to a point, at one point where I was just dreading workouts. I was just like so tired and exhausted. And I was like, oh man, like I don't want to do this today. And I think that's why I kind of got to the point of just going out for runs and learning to really just enjoy running again in the process. But with that, the time came again where I needed to re-implement some workouts. And if I'm going to achieve my goal, which we're going to talk about here in just a moment, I really needed to get back to doing some of this work and getting my body, ready for this challenge that lies ahead, building the foundations to hopefully have a successful race. So, it's like I don't see it on the schedule and dread it anymore. I look forward to it. I say, oh, cool. This is what we're doing today. I try not to look too far ahead. I may look at the week as a whole and make sure that I understand every aspect so that if I have a question, I can ask Ryan well ahead of schedule. If I need clarification on anything, but really, I just try to take it day by day. Training Peaks sends me an email that says, here's what you're doing today. And that's typically when I kind of look at the details and make sure that I understand the workout. Loving my new Garmin Enduro. What are we on, 3? I love the fact that the workouts upload automatically to the watch, especially with interval workouts with a lot of changes in effort, pace, tempo, etc. It's nice just to hit start, from the activity, and it just tells me how much time and at what effort I'm supposed to be going. So I'm really enjoying that, and I'm really enjoying the Enduro 3. I've trying to play with the settings to make sure I understand how best to use this watch. There are a lot of metrics on it, and this is probably a topic for another conversation. But so far I've really enjoyed the new Enduro 3. With all that said, I've had a shift in my focus, both on what I'm doing, what I'm racing, and how I'm training. So that's been really big. But getting into the goals, as I mentioned, my goals, which I believe are very legitimate if I get into the shape that I know I can, and I'm going to talk about how I expect to do that. My A goal would be to break 20 hours. I would love to break 20 hours as my A goal. And again, I've got work to do. I recognize that, but I'm putting everything in place to do so. Based on my history, based on what I've done in the past, and again, with the hope of getting to the point where I think that it is very legitimate on a good day to break 20 hours. My B goal would be to break 24 hours. I think that's still a great possibility, given it's, how does the body react on race day? And that's what I have to remember. And my C goal would be just to finish, right? You get in under that 30-hour mark. I'm hoping it does not come to the C goal, but the day gives you what the day gives you. I have to be accepting, as we've talked about, of every single one of those goals. I can't be frustrated in race if B is slipping away, if sub 24 hour is finishing away, is slipping away. I have to remember that there's still racing to go, that can still come back on the back half, right? So, but I have to be okay and not extremely frustrated if it's not working, if it's just not my day like it was in 2023. That was just not my day. And I'm hoping with everything that we're implementing that I'm going to give myself the best shot of achieving my A goal. So those are my goals. The next piece is my why. I think this is something good to kind of start with. Need to share this with all of my team. And again, we're going to talk about my team here after we talk about my why. But I'm going to begin with, as I always do, my family and their love, their sacrifices, and their excitement to be there. We were just talking last night at dinner, and the kids talked about our last spring break trip. We wanted to see a few colleges for Keegan. We went to UVA, William and Mary, just stopped by a few others, but the vacation entailed Washington, D.C., and Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg. And the kids said that they really did not enjoy Williamsburg at all. And my wife had kind of said, we need to take them on other trips other than running vacations. And the kids kind of protested and said, those are the vacations we enjoy, which just lit up my heart. Yeah, my wife was very surprised because we did some fun stuff while we were there. We went to Busch Gardens, and they enjoyed DC to some degree, but they really enjoy going to the races and being part of that. Which just it just oh, gosh, I can't tell you how much that meant to me, and just hearing it from them. Um, putting them at the forefront as I always do, and you'll hear that throughout here. When I talk about things, they are up front. They are the first thing that comes to mind, because I know that they. We could be doing other things, and I spend a lot of time with this, training with the sport. But they apparently they wouldn't have it any other way, which just it makes me feel so much better about doing this. I know they're on board, which that's the biggest thing. That was the conversation we had. Beth was the first person I called and talked to when I got into Western States, and we began to make the plan to make this happen. The kids were the first people I texted to let them know. So it was pretty wonderful to kind of share that, to give you the story about what happened. If you haven't seen my social media post, I was up on a roof. I was fixing a chimney cap for my aunt when my phone began to explode. I knew I had gotten into one or the other. My friend Laura Rollins had already gotten in earlier in the lottery, so I was excited for her, especially because I know she's been trying to get in for a long time, and this is obviously a goal for many of us, as well as our friend Liz Lucarelli, who she had a million tickets, so very excited for them, and David Galloway, who got in both to Western States and Hard Rock. So we got a number of North Carolinians that will be towing the line, as well as a number that are on each wait list. I'm pretty excited for many of the North Carolinians, and of course, sorry for those that did not get in. But anyhow, I was up on the roof, phone blew up, and I looked down. First text I saw was from Jeff Winchester, who's a friend, an athlete, and also a coach. But Jeff said you got in. And there's two lotteries, so my first question was to what? And he said Western, and I just texted back, "Ha," because that was the one that I least expected to get into, and I know Jeff wanted to get into as well. So again, feel very fortunate to get that. But with that said, and continuing on with my why, When I finished last time, I was happy, of course, but I was disappointed in myself. I was disappointed in my state of fitness, and my lackadaisical approach to the event. Knowing full well that I may not have another shot at cracking 24 hours, because who knows when I would have got in again. I really did not anticipate getting in until, probably after I was 50. 47 now. When I race, I'll still be 47, but really did not expect to have this opportunity so soon. So, knowing that I've been given another shot, I'm going to give it what I have, and we're going to talk about the ways that I intend to do so. Now, all this said, doesn't mean it will happen. No, but that goes back to what I was saying earlier about my goals. I have to be okay with every aspect of this. If I'm not given the day, then, unfortunately, that's the way it is, right? Like, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I can. I'm going to take care of all little things. But if that doesn't happen, again, I can be upset, I can be frustrated, but the reality is, if it's not my day, it's not my day. Um, and lastly, when talking about my why, a buckle or a time doesn't define me. But at the same time, I don't want to leave anything on the table in trying to reach that goal. This is a personal challenge, right? This is personal to me. This means something to me. It's not that I desire more than anything that silver buckle, but I've been given this opportunity, and as I said, I appreciate that fact, and I'm going to take every opportunity that I have, every ounce of my being to try to make it happen. Um, and so the other piece of that is that by watching Keegan and Ambrin this past season, it sparked something in me. And that's what I talked about earlier with doing the workouts. I've got a piece of me that is burning bright, that's, hasn't been there in some time, and getting back to a competitive spirit and getting back to being competitive. And, that doesn't necessarily mean I want to go out there and try to be top 10 or top 25. That's not what I said here, right? Like I talked about time goals. This is personal. I'm not really, I don't care where I am place wise. That's not the competitive side of me that I'm talking about right now. I care about the focus is on the time and the finish of the time. There are so many good runners out there running. I'm happy for my friend Chris Roberts. He also got into both Hard Rock and Western States. Excited to see him back there. I believe he had a top 15 finish previously. Chris has been on the podcast. If you recognize the name, he was second to Harvey Lewis in the Big's backyard a few years ago. Chris has run on our 24-hour team. Extreme, just a great talent. It's been fun to watch him grow in our sport. But, whereas people, like himself may be more concerned with his placing, again, that's not what I'm worried about. Like I am focused on me and I am focused on the time. Like I don't want to know what place I'm in. I just want to know what time I'm running. So, gonna have my ultra pacer chart with me and with my pacers to kind of get an idea of where I'm at the various aid stations, to make sure that if I do a time check, kind of see where I'm at. But at the same time, not stressing myself, and that's what I'm going to talk about more later on. The stress of the event can be overwhelming, and I think that got to me last year, and I'll talk about that as well. So, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? That's the question, right? The $1 million question. I'm forming a team around me, and I mentioned that earlier. And of course, the first piece of that is my family. All right, the kids, Beth, they are my grounding rod. If I'm if I'm thinking about it, like they're the people that I want around me. They are what I want to see at the aid stations. They are who I want to see at the aid stations. They help me pick myself back up and gather myself when I'm in my lows. So, having them as a part of this process, all the way through to race day, that's a huge piece of this. And like I said, having them on board is it's more than encouraging. It's easier to wake up. It's part of my why, right? Like it's part of why I can get out there, because I know they're on board. They're with this. They're excited by it. That's awesome. Like I just love that component. So having my family on board, and then having my two friends that have, paced me in the past, Nathan Frantz and Morgan Elliott. They're going to try to be a part of this as well, which I'm super excited to have both of them back on board. They've both paced me at Western States. Obviously, they've paced me all over the place, and to have them as part of this journey, it just strengthens my why because they're they're close. They're like family to me. I love both of them dearly, and I'm so happy that I get to do this with them again. So really excited by that. My coaches, I've got four different coaches, and each of them have their own purpose and their own roles. Where as I mentioned, Ryan Anderson is my run coach. Will France is my strength coach. I've asked Marissa Romeo to come on board. Marissa is an outstanding runner in her own right. She's been coached by Ryan, so she's familiar with his methods and training and how he works. But she's also working on her mental sports performance coaching degree. And so she's been working with some of my athletes, and they have raved about her services. So I'll be talking with Marissa this week and kind of how we plan to move forward. I'm super excited by that. And then lastly, I brought my dietitian, Kendra Miller, back on board. With Helene hitting, we've kind of, we've missed that space. I've already spoken with her. We've had a conversation about, the plan, on how we're going to help me manage my weight and make a nutrition and hydration plan. Which, if I'm honest, I had a physical the other day, and I'm honestly the heaviest I've ever been. And it doesn't make running any easier. And I want to kind of get back to where I was when I ran Bigfoot, because it was much easier to move up and down the mountains. So, the focus with her is going to be making sure my diet is what I need, not only to lose weight, but to sustain my training. And also to make sure we have a plan going into Western states so far as nutrition and hydration goes. We're going to keep working on that. That's her role. So there's my team. There's going to be others that come in and out. If something surfaces, Miriam Saloom, she'll be my physical therapist, from the runner's mechanic, and I'm sure that there'll be more people that I'll have to rely on. But those are ones I would term my coaches that I'll be communicating with quite frequently. The second piece of how to get there is dealing with stress. And that comes in multiple forms. So with that, I am going to try to have time management and scheduling and do better at managing how I do things, when I do things, and making sure that I prioritize what needs to get done without stressing. And that's the big thing in the past that I've kind of tried to do too much and created way too much stress within my life. And I think my wife brought that to my attention, is that like, I need to be better about how much I take on and how much stress that creates, and recognizing when I am overstressed and overburdened, and trying to manage that load a little bit better, and not overdoing it. So, how am I going to do that? I have to put things into priorities and prioritize everything in my life, which, just as I said earlier, this will follow the theme. Number one and foremost is my family. I have to prioritize my family. This is a really important time in Keegan's life, especially. He's a senior in high school and hopes to be going to college next year, and running in a D1 program. So he has been at the forefront of the family right now. not to put Amber on the back burner. She has her time, and but we recognize that Keegan has a lot going on right now. So we've been doing a lot for Keegan and trying to make sure that we give him the best opportunity for his future. So that's huge for us right now. So, family is number one. Number two, with stress and everything, I need to make sure that I'm getting enough sleep. As I say this, I went to bed around 10 last night, but I got up at 4:30. I had to get up and kind of get things done so I could get this podcast recorded. Again, I have another podcast later. I have to work on my athlete scheduling. So there's a lot that has to happen, and there's a lot that I have to do, but I have to make sure that I'm doing better about sleep. And, so that means that I have to do better during the day about getting things done and making sure that I'm not wasting time by doing, things that are that are not priorities, like scrolling on my phone, right? Like playing a game. So there's a time and a place for that. We always need those relaxers, but if there's other things that need to be getting done, then I need to make sure that I'm not, goofing off and not getting done, so that I can go to bed at night. Um, my diet, obviously working with Kendra on my diet, that's going to be huge. And making sure that I'm eating healthy, I'm eating enough. I'm going in to meet with her in person, and we're going to work on where I'm at, and kind of dialing in what I need to be doing on a daily basis in so far as my diet goes, to make sure that I'm not overdoing it or underdoing it. So that's going to be a huge component as well. I spoke a little bit about work. I try to slot a specific amount of time to work on schedules for my athletes, as well as checking in with my athletes. I kind of pride myself on checking in on a daily basis. Sometimes that's very difficult with everything else going on, especially with coaching winter track right now. Winter track kind of takes a big divot in my day. So I have to be really careful with my time once again. And then, of course, prioritizing my training, making sure that I'm getting it in and not being stressed by the fact that I have a workout, but just making sure that I recognize what time I do have to fit that workout in. That's a really delicate balance because, when we look at a schedule and all of a sudden on a given Thursday, you see a 2 hour and 15-minute run, you're like, wow, that's a lot of time. So I have to make sure that, all of the other things before that, right? My family, my sleep, my diet, work, all of those things are taken care of so that I can get out there and get my training in. So once again, I'm trying to prioritize and make sure that I'm doing these things so that it reduces my stress. I recognize my priorities, and I have to take care of those priorities, and that will hopefully make it so that I don't stress as much. Um, okay, let's see. Um, with all that said, I kind of want to talk about some lessons that I learned from my first go around at Western States. Um, my first go around, it was very, very difficult to stay present. I was excited by the prospect of running Western States, and the largeness of the event, I think, sometimes overwhelmed me. I really wanted to get out there and run, and I really did not stay present. I really didn't focus on me, what I was doing, how I was doing it. I just kind of wanted to get there. I wanted to rush to be that day, without kind of thinking about what I was doing along the way. I kind of just expected to get there and run this event. I was kind of just going through the motions, going through the training, and just kind of following the schedule without really, feeling or talking too much about, how I was feeling. There were times where I was feeling extra tired and we had to pull back. But, the overall picture, I really wasn't looking on the, the really the daily. how I was doing daily and how I was feeling through each phase. Was I making the gains that I wanted to make? Was I doing the other things to help me make those gains even better? And the answer was no, I was not. I wasn't really I wasn't really kind of zooming in. I would zoom out way too often, right? And when we zoom out, we're all we're focused is on is the event, not everything that leads to it, right? Like the things I just mentioned. Of course, I was still focused on my family, but I wasn't prioritizing my diet, my sleep. I wasn't prioritizing my stress. Obviously, I was prioritizing work, but training once again, there's two components to that, right? There's the actual daily activity that you're doing, but there's also how you're responding to that training. And I really wasn't responding to the training, if I'm honest with myself. And that's something that both my coach at the time and myself should have done a better job with. And so, I want to stay more present. And in this training cycle, I want to focus on where I'm at. I want to focus on basically not only the day, but that week and what I'm doing during that week to make sure that I'm getting the most out of it, right? And that goes back to my priorities and making sure that I understand those. So, again, I'm not going to zoom out as far. I've also brought in, as I mentioned, Marissa Romeo, who is a mental performance coach, and I hope to have the conversations to help keep me grounded and present. That's the big thing that's I really want to get from having Marissa as part of my team. The next piece is creating benchmark goals. I didn't have those leading into the first Western states. I really didn't take the time to say, okay, in order to do this, in order to reach my goal, because I think my ultimate goal, like, and if I'm honest, like I wanted to break 24 hours, but I really wasn't doing or creating benchmarks to help me do so. And this is something that I'm going to have to work with Ryan about in training, is saying like, all right, in order to get sub 24, what are some things that we should expect or do along the way? Right. So, in my training, I definitely want to have benchmark goals, whether it's like, all right, let's run a marathon and see what we can hit in the marathon, or let's kind of get this long run in and try to replicate Western States best we can and see what my average pace would be. Right. So kind of putting those benchmarks in that kind of give me the idea of where I'm at and how I'm doing. So, training is going to be a huge piece in making sure that I create benchmarks that will help me and show me where I'm at so that I know, in reality, like, can I break 20 hours? And if I'm looking at these benchmarks and it's like, it's all factors, all indicators are pointing to no, that's not a reality, then I need to adjust the goal, right? I need to go back and say, okay, so what's the reality? Is breaking, 21, is that realistic? Okay. So again, making adjustments so that they're realistic, that's massive, right? So, but looking at that through training lens and in here, kind of zooming in again and looking at it with Ryan to say, hey, is this realistic? Is this realistic what I'm looking to do? Secondly, benchmark goals, my weight. And this is something, once again, that I'm going to work on with Kendra. From 2021 to now, I've gained 22 pounds. And that, my friends, is why I've harped on this so much. 22 pounds is a lot of weight to be carrying around and trying to run fast. Realistically, I have 6 months, over 6 months to try to drop that down. Will I get down to, I'm 184 now. Will I get down to 162? I don't know. I don't know. But what we're going to work on is trying to make that happen. And, as I said, I've hired a professional in Kendra to help me try to get that done. Right. So that's going to be a priority. So we're certainly going to try. Next is my thoughts on other races. So benchmarks, as I talked about, potentially doing like maybe a marathon and seeing what I can do. But I don't want to race a lot. That's been tough. That's been really tough in um, in past experiences, like, doing a 50 miler prior to, I oftentimes have a really good result in that 50 miler, but it's taken so much out of me in the process of trying to run 100 that, it's taken away from my ultimate goal. So, looking back over the historical races, and it's tough because last year I ran Heartbreaker. I felt like I had a pretty darn good race. But on Hellbender race day, I was sick. So it's hard to know what that would have happened. But in the year of Western States in 2023, when I did, let's see, it was called the Bootlegger 50 miler. We ran pretty darn well. We ran a really good 50 miler. And then Western States, again, I had a rough day. Now, there's factors that can contribute to that, but I'm just saying I don't think racing a 50 miler prior to Western States is going to be entirely necessary. So I want to be really careful about, what I race, how much I race, and how far the races are. So I'm going to really have some, conversations with Ryan, and again, kind of form some benchmarks, but I don't want to overdo it. I'd rather focus on the training, and then focus on Western States itself. Um, Taking care of the little things. This was something I really didn't take care of, for my previous Western States, and that was really difficult because, I can think back to race week. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. I ate like crap the week of the race, and those things contributed to race day, and I was very disappointed in myself. I have to be a little bit more cognizant and focused and intentional on what I'm doing in those things. Again, that goes back to my priorities and remembering what my priorities are. I've listed them now. I'm going to print those out and I'm going to post those around so that I remember my intention and my priorities when doing things. So, part of that is recognizing these failures and then working to resolve them. And that's what I'm doing in this process. So, um, next, I am not the same runner. The only thing I can do is work hard and smart and to achieve my goal, right? Like I'm not the same runner that I was. Every year your body changes and I have to give myself some grace and remember that I'm not the same runner that I used to be. Now, I still believe I can achieve these goals and I'm doing everything I can. But again, I have to give myself some grace and recognize that I can only work hard and smart to try to achieve these goals. And, given like we'll see what the training leads to with all of these ancillary pieces, and hopefully we'll get the result I'm looking for. But if not, again, I have to be okay with that. In the race itself, I need to be more efficient at the aid stations and know what I want going in. I have a good idea at what's at the aid stations now, so I have a better idea of what to carry and what to ask my crew for when I get to various aid stations. And I need to communicate with my crew. Okay, I want my bottles ready so that when I get there, I'll give you my old ones. I'm going to have those already in hand, and we just reload my pack and off I go. I don't want to waste a lot of time at the aid stations. I wasted, and I can't say I wasted a lot of time based on how I was feeling. Based on how I was feeling, I had to take care of myself at certain aid stations, and I spent a lot of time. I'm hoping that with a better plan and execution, that I won't have to do that this year. Now, if it's hot, I've got to remember, okay, like while things are going on, I need some cooling strategies while we're reloading the pack and such, and then I can go out and hopefully with like ice in a neck bandana and kind of go on. But my point being, I need to have a better plan. I didn't have a great plan, and that's something I'm going to talk about here in a moment. The other piece of that is that I can't carry so much stuff. And this is something I talked to Kendra about. I was so weighed down that I could barely run with my pack. It slowed me down. And I need to figure out how to be better about that. And a piece of that we talked about is potentially carrying some handhelds rather than loading up so much fluid in the bladder in my back. So maybe having like, two chest bottles and a handheld. So it's something that we have to work on in training, but I need to be better about what's in my pack, how much is in my pack, and how much I'm carrying. And I felt that at High Lonesome as well. It's just I had so much weight in my pack. I just couldn't run, and I need to be smarter about that and figure out how I can, potentially filter, or carry, water in other ways like a handheld, so that I'm not, as weighed down. Um, I wrote a note here. It says, "Be more minimal, but minimal, but not stupid." Right. I've raced some races where like I was so minimal that I didn't have what I needed, and that was dumb. So I need to make sure I have what I need, but not overdo it. And I'm going to be more intentional with my pack and my weight of what I'm carrying. Um, Heat training. I've talked about this in the past. I heat trained in a wet sauna, and I think that just wiped me out. I'm going to try heat training in a dry sauna, and if the body isn't happy, I got to recognize that and adapt. And I communicated that again with my coach that it's what I had access to, but I need to make sure that I have access to a dry sauna and try it that way and see if my body reacts any better. With that said, I have to trust and listen to the body, right? And communicate and be more, I guess, standoffish, if you will, if things aren't going right. Like if I feel like I'm tired and I'm not recovering or I'm not making gains. Ryan is a great coach. He looks at the metrics, not that my previous coach was not, but I'm hoping that the feedback that I provide, as well as the metrics that are being provided, will kind of give better guidance as to what we're doing and how we're doing, and hopefully ultimately lead me to the results that I'm looking for. All right, here's where I get into I need to allow my mind to be free of everyone else around me on race day and race week. Um, for those of you that have not experienced Western States is very energetic, but it is also a stressful atmosphere. So many people want that silver buckle. So many people want to reach that finish line that there is so much anxiety around the race. And it's felt not only through the other runners, but through the race staff and volunteers. But that doesn't mean that I need to be stressed. And I think I was last year. I was stressed by the environment. I was stressed by the volunteers. I'd get into an aid station and their energy was just like, let's go, get you out of here. You can't stay here. And I have to be okay with saying, okay, yep, you're right. Like, let me take care of this, that, and the other thing, and I'm out of here. So again, going into the aid stations with a plan, knowing what I need, knowing what I want, I can communicate those effectively and then get out of there as fast as possible without having that anxiety come from the energies that I'm feeling from the people around me, as well as pre-race excitement. What we've done is we're going to stay further away this time so that we're not constantly around the race and the environment of the race. It's cool to experience some of the things that Western States has, and be a part of some of that. But at the same time, again, like, it can be too much. You can waste too much energy in the excitement of everything that's going on. I know so many people try to do so many of the different group runs that Western States has that they left so much, energy out on these group runs. It ruined their race day, So, those things are, for instance, so I want to be careful and selective with what I do and how I do things and what I'm participating in, remembering that my goal is to, race as well as possible. Um, all right. And then lastly, as part of this, allowing myself to be free of everyone around me, I have to remind myself that I have a purpose there. And the vast majority of it is to enjoy the experience. Like, I have to put joy at the forefront. Like, I need to enjoy the race, right? Like, I need to enjoy the experience. I did, to a certain extent, like I was appreciative of the various places that I was seeing and going, and recognizing that it's historical, right? But I want to keep joy at the forefront, and I need to remember that piece as well. The next piece is I know the course, and I can't control the conditions. I can only do my best to prepare for them. Last time, I truly didn't plan well for the event. I was whimsical, which led to poor execution of the race in many facets. I really did not have a plan. I didn't have a cooling plan. My nutrition plan was way off. It was not good at all. Same with my hydration. I learned a lot of lessons, of course, but a few things that I want to make sure that I'm focusing on is, hydration once again, and where I can refill. So, carrying a filter. I'm going to be very intentional with my fluids and making sure I have enough fluids, but I'm not over carrying too much weight, even if it sacrifices a little bit of time in having to filter water. Focusing on nutrition, as I've mentioned, talking with Kendra and trying to practice these various, fuel intakes and timing of those intakes and how I'm doing. My pack weight, once again, making sure that every ounce counts, with not overdoing it. Running in more sections. The last time my legs just did not want to run. Hopefully this time legs are ready to roll and I can run more sections. That's going to be key. And then, as I mentioned, cooling strategies. Those are going to be massive, especially if we have a hot day. Knowing where the creeks are that I can kind of jump in and cool off. Making sure that I take advantage of the ice bandanas. So all of these things, making sure that I have cooling strategies and know when and where I can use them. And then lastly, staying awake, or getting it done much faster that I don't even have to worry about it. Because last time, I mean, I had to lay down and take a nap, and this is a race where every second counts. So I want to make sure that I have a plan in place for staying awake, for implementing caffeine strategically and making sure that I'm ready for the nighttime. I'm going to close here in saying I'm excited, I'm motivated, I'm being held accountable. I'm not ready at the moment, but I will be. I can't wait for Western States. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I can't wait to share this journey with you all, however it results. It's going to be fun to go through this together. So, thank you, for my friends, for listening. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. I hope everyone is doing well. As always, I appreciate you. I appreciate the Patreon supporters. As as I keep mentioning, I'm so grateful for everything. I'm grateful to be a part of this sport. I'm grateful to share the journey of my runners, all the runners that I coach. If you're interested in having that conversation, please reach out. There's a million ways to do so in the show notes. Even if you just want to talk about your own training and things that you think you can improve on, let's find a time that we can chat and hopefully help you. So, thank you again, my friends. Be well, stay well, keep moving forward. Running is life.